Welcome to Worship Tutorials. This is the first video in a series. I think we're going to call this one This is the Beginning. We did a video called This is the End, and it was all about me moving away from where I used to live in Chapel Hill. I've made it to Alabama, to Birmingham. I am sitting in what is WT Studio. And in this series of videos, I'm going to sort of take you along with me as we set up this studio. I wanted to share a little bit in this video though about change. It's hard. I'm going through that right now. The last week of my life has been like a wildly emotional week. But I wanted to show you around today, and then I wanted just to share a few things that I have been encouraged by recently that maybe could encourage you as well. If you're going through a difficult change in life, let's do it. Let's check out the new space. So first of all, we are set up in a basement. So we come down the stairs. This is sort of the main shooting space for the studio. So I've kind of got things divided. There was a wall here. You can see there, they knocked that wall out. They had to leave some of the structure in place for structural support, but this is the main shooting area once it gets cleaned up. We're gonna put a couch over there, a bunch of amplifiers on the wall. Right now it's all just boxes. So main shooting area, we've got a bathroom. This shower is probably gonna end up being storage for guitar cases. I don't know where else to put them. All right, so we come out of the main shooting area, and this is gonna be where kind of the control center is. So my whole desk setup is gonna go here. Got a few windows to look out into the backyard. Then we've got another little area here that we can utilize for content somehow. I can also build in storage over here. And then this room kind of goes a little deeper in. You can see it's just full of amplifiers boxes at the moment. This is one of the things that I'm very excited about in this room. Currently, it's guitar storage land in this room, but this was sort of a large room here. It's not that large, it's like the size of a bedroom. And then I had them build this wall here to partition it. So this room that we're standing in right now is going to be used for miking amplifiers. So the idea is I'm gonna have some cables that will come from the desk, run through the walls, and come in here that I can patch in. And then we're gonna mic amps in here. And this room is actually, I don't know if you can tell by the change in the sound of my voice, this room is actually kind of soundproofed. Special insulation, special sheetrock and stuff in the walls here. So it's gonna be kind of quiet. And then this room, it's gonna be storage. As you can tell though, this place is a mess. I was talking to Nick about this video, and he was like, show everything the way that it is in the room right now. Like, show the mess, because the mess in the room sort of illustrates the mess that we go through when we go through things that are difficult. And then over time, hopefully what you'll see is that this studio space becomes more and more beautiful. And I think that illustrates what God does in our lives a little bit too. So hopefully the idea is these videos, the room itself is going to be sort of a representation of what happens on the inside here. Because right now, I feel a lot bit like this room. I feel like it's a mess. Everything is a little disorganized. Things feel a little hopeless sometimes. And I think we all feel that when we go through change in life, because change is hard. But a few weekends ago at my church in Chapel Hill, Chatham Community Church, I think God used a Sunday, it was 3 weeks ago-ish, to really speak a few things into my life. That have always been true, but I needed to be reminded of them. And a few of them came in the songs that we did. We did Oceans. And I know Oceans is an overdone song, or has been, but I've always just loved that song. It's a song about faith. It's a song about stepping out in faith when you don't know the end, but God does. And that's true in our lives. There's countless stories in the Bible. The story of Abraham is of course, a classic example of God calling somebody to something. And God doesn't tell Abraham what the end of the story is going to be. But he calls him out, and God blesses him through it. And so we sang the song Oceans, and it was all working on a theme. It was this series that our pastor, his name's Alex did, called Signature Moments. And we sang You Make Me Brave, and there were other songs, and they were all centered around this idea of stepping out in faith when it's really kind of a scary thing. And that's what I'm doing right now. And so I just want to encourage you the way that the Lord encouraged me 3 weeks ago on Sunday morning at Chatham Community Church, through the songs that we sang, through Pastor Alex's message, that God has really big and beautiful things ahead of us in our lives. And life does things to us along the way that makes it difficult to remember that, difficult to keep that in focus, because we go through things that feel hopeless. And I understand too that I'm talking about moving. My family moved. We don't know anybody here. I'm talking about a business moving and sort of changing the way that it works. These things are scary. And what I'm trying to say is I realize there are things that happen in life that are far more extreme than this, like losing a loved one. I recently, in my family, went through that. And that's a much more difficult thing on many levels. Or a lot more difficult things can happen to people. But what I want to do is encourage you that God has a plan for you, and for me, and for Bradford, and for Nick, and all of us together at Worship Tutorials. And it's often, almost always, I won't even say often, always, 100% of the time, far greater than anything we could ever hope or imagine in our lives. But often looks very different than what we might envision. There's a few verses that I'm thinking of that come to my mind that I think often get taken out of context or used in a manipulative way. One of them is this verse that we often hear, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you a future. What many people don't realize is what the context around that declaration was. People were in captivity, and the passage is saying, what God is saying to these people is, he didn't bring them out in that generation that heard them. They didn't come out of captivity. And God was saying, you need to prosper. I have a plan to prosper you where you are. You don't want to be here, but I'm going to allow you to prosper. I'm going to bring you up, right, as a people, and you're going to prosper, and I'm going to do beautiful things through you right where you are. I'm not going to take you where you want to be, because the plan that I have for you is greater than that. So that's that. When I think about that verse, I always get sort of like emotional about it, and I am right now. So that's the first one, and then there's the verse that says, "I will, give you the desires of your heart." The Lord says, "I will give you the desires of your heart." And people take that and they manipulate it into saying that whatever you want, God is going to give you if you have enough faith. But that is not what the passage says. What the passage says is, delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. So step one is, you have to delight yourself in the Lord. And I believe, and we've talked about this, Bradford has talked about this a lot in content that we've made. We believe that when you delight yourself in the Lord, the desires of your heart will begin to change. And your heart begins to align with the Lord's heart. And when your heart does that, when you begin to desire the things that God has for you and the things that God wants for you in your future, then the Lord will give you those desires of your heart. But it's not like, I want to be rich. I want to have a perfect whatever, family, place to live. Like, these things might be what God desires for you. But if you begin to delight yourself in the Lord, some of that stuff might become less important in your life. And God will give you then the desires that he plants in your heart. But the end result is always something far more beautiful, something far more impactful that God has envisioned for our lives that we could ever, it's bigger and better than what we could envision for ourselves. I don't know what that means for the future of worship tutorials, for the future of my life personally. I believe with all my heart that this is what God has for me in this moment in time. In the future, it might be something different. Who knows? But right now, I'm going to press in, and I'm going to choose to believe the things that I know to be true that God has planted in my heart. And I'm going to choose to believe the passages that I read that I know are true in the Bible, and the promises of God. And because if I don't choose to do that, it's going to be easy for me to sort of go into a bad place mentally, emotionally, in the midst of all this change. So I hope that encourages you a little bit if you are going through change in your life as well. Change is hard, but I am going to choose to believe, to be excited for the future of what God has for me here in this studio, in this house in Birmingham, what the future of the channel will be, the way that God will use it to bless people in the future. I'm excited, and I'm excited to bring you along for the ride, for the journey together. And we're gonna see this space get transformed into something pretty awesome. There's a light that keeps flickering over there. I'm gonna have to fix that. We'll have to figure out what the heck's going on. Anyway, stay tuned, subscribe, hit the bell, hit the icon to be notified when future content gets uploaded. You're gonna see a lot more content from the old space because we shot a ton of video there before we moved away, before we tore it all down. So there will be a lot more content coming from the old studio space. So do not be confused. That's why. But wanted to get this out there as sort of episode 1 in this series. See you in the next one. Bye.